What's happening, friends? I just made a short video about this, but I felt like it warranted a little bit more conversation. In my opinion, there's two ways that you can position yourself in the marketplace. You can come in as the expert, or you can come in as the biggest fan. So if you have put in the time in this field, if you actually have your 10,000 hours, so to speak, and you really are the expert in whatever this craft is, especially in a service-based industry, then you need to let your customers know that you really are the expert in the field and that they can trust your expertise. Now, if you're new in the field, or if you're new in the craft, or whatever the thing is that you're offering, and you actually don't have that amount of time under your belt to prove that you're an expert, you can come in as the biggest fan. And this is a really great approach. I've done this in multiple companies. So when I very first started my photography company, when I was 15 years old, obviously I wasn't the expert, but I loved photography, and I came in as the biggest fan of the subject. In fact, now that I think about it, I've done this with most of my career moves. When I started my recording studio, I was in the same boat. I had recorded music for years, but I had never owned and operated a studio on my own, so I came in as a massive fan of the subject. The beauty of coming in as a fan is your customers and your clients will get to know you, and that you care so much that you're gonna make sure you do everything you can to make their project the best it can possibly be. So I also did this with our coffee shop. When we opened our coffee shop, I kind of jokingly say this now, but 3 days before we opened the coffee shop, I had never pulled a shot of espresso. However, I had hand brewed coffee for years leading up to this. We didn't have a coffee pot at home. I obsessed over varieties of coffees and where they were grown and all the things. Like, I loved great coffee, but I'd never worked as a barista before we opened our coffee shop. But all of our early on customers will tell you how passionate I was about making the best possible cup of coffee and serving them the best possible thing that I could. In fact, years later, I was actually sitting with a client here in my office who came to me for brand work. And she said, you know, one of the things I remember about when you opened the coffee shop here in our community was that you were such a big fan of what you were doing and you were so passionate about it. I knew that you were gonna make something amazing out of it. And I also did this when we opened our sawmill. 2 weeks before we actually bought our first sawmill and started the company, I didn't even know what a sawmill was. In fact, I was at my daughter's birthday party when a friend of mine showed me what a sawmill was and how it actually operated and how it cut lumber out of logs. And I thought, well, that's a really cool thing. I wonder if I could turn this into a business opportunity. So with one of my best friends, we got together, we bought this piece of equipment. And the way that this actually works, though, where you're not gonna let down your customers, your clients, is we became the biggest fans. We were both up until midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, sending each other videos of different things that we found and how we were gonna do stuff, and researching and reading and getting out and working it together. We worked it together for months before we actually started cutting for clients. By the time we actually got to working for our clients, we had at least a good foundation under us of what we were doing. And now we're very proficient in that business. But we started out not as experts, but as biggest fans in all of these different areas. And truthfully, even when I hire someone else to do work for me, often I would actually rather hire someone who's competent and extremely passionate about what they're doing than someone who maybe is an expert but is getting to the point where they don't really care about what they're doing anymore. And I think people realize that too. So all to say, where you really want to end up is both the expert and the biggest fan. You want to get to a point in your career where you have years of knowledge and thousands of hours of time that you've put in research and understanding and trial and error that you can lean on and promise your customer that you are going to do everything possible to make sure that they are in great shape. But staying the biggest fan of whatever your industry is, and them knowing that you will always be learning and staying on the foreground and in the forefront of the new developments and whatever that field is. So if you're new, come in as the biggest fan. Don't be intimidated that you're not an expert. Of course you're not an expert. Everyone starts somewhere, but actually be the biggest fan. Don't go halfway and just do your best to get by. Be the biggest fan of whatever industry you're in. And if you have expertise, stay the biggest fan. Don't lose the passion for what you're doing. Do whatever you need to do to rekindle that and keep that spark alive. So if you're new to an industry, come in as the biggest fan. If you're old to an industry, use your expertise to leverage being the biggest fan. Hope you guys are having a great day. Talk to you later.